Hi George.
Hello, mate.
I want to let everyone who's watching this know this is the second time that we've filmed Talking Business, so we're getting into the routine of it now.
Yeah.
I think what you should do is you should tell them what they need to do when they're watching this video.
What should they do?
Well, what they need to do is they also need to like it if they're enjoying it.
Yeah. Obviously try and watch the whole thing, because that's great. Subscribe if you fancy it. Comment, like below. I don't know. Is that what you meant to say?
Yeah, I think that's something like that. That's how you do YouTube, isn't it? If you've enjoyed the fact that we're filming these now, please let us know, because there's a lot of work that goes into it. So.
Liam's the man behind the camera, filming and editing and producing. Although there were some technical issues today, there's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes. So.
Yeah, so let us know if you're enjoying it, because we would love to carry it
100%.
Carry on, wouldn't
100%.
we? And that's it. I think enjoyed this episode.
Yeah. I think we've almost done it before. So I've done one episode with Scotty where we were just kind of talking, and it ended up me asking him out of nowhere. I was like, "Am I a good boss?" And then the episode title is like, "Am I a good boss?" And we just had this chat about. He was like, "Yeah, you're a bit different. It's different. It's my first proper job," and we started getting into it. And I just thought it'd be really nice to just do it with almost everyone on the team.
But yeah, I met you in, I think it was the February of 2017.
Yeah,
that sounds right, doesn't it?
2017, yeah.
Early 2017, yeah, February 2017. Then joined the team in June of that year. I remember when we first met, because obviously I've talked about this story before, but I basically just reached out really cold to James saying I was loving what you guys were doing, kind of talked about my own mental health story and where I was at job-wise. And then, came and met you guys for an 8 a.m.er, as we now know them, which is kind of the key time of the day for people I want to meet. But if it's not kind of business critical, if you can make it in for then, you clearly care enough to get up early for us. And then, after that, it was kind of a lot of backwards and forwards. And when it got to the point when there was kind of an actual job sort of on the table of this operations role. And then after we'd done the references and stuff like that, remember me, you and James went for dinner together. Even that idea, I remember saying to my friends, I was like, this is so weird. This is a job interview, but I kind of feel like I'm dating them both. It was just this weird atmosphere, because it was I kind of felt it was such a good thing to do as well, because obviously given how tiny Sanctus was, it was literally going to be the three of us. So it's if we don't get on a mate's level, how can we sit there for 9 hours a day together and build this business? And of course there's work to do, but also being in that close quarters with one another, it felt really important that we actually got on and we're on the same page. And I'd already got really good vibes off you two. I was we think about mental health the same way. I really clicked with you two naturally, found you very easy to talk to. And I was I've got a good feeling, but then actually sitting there being oh God, could we have lunch together every day? Do I feel comfortable enough to not only work with you and ask questions, but actually kind of get to know you as mates? So it was very new. Obviously I've never done anything like that before, but I remember thinking oh, that's really cool. I remember when I looked at Sanctus on LinkedIn, you were listed as an employee, and it said content contributor. So I remember one of my first days, I was like, so where's George Bell then? And you were like, what? I was
God.
Well, doesn't he work here? It's on his LinkedIn. So you so I knew of you.
I'd written one article and I was like, right, I'm in. So I put it on my LinkedIn.
I love that though, hustle hard.
So
And what was your first impression of me?
So because I knew James better very, very beginning, because I followed his newsletters and we were the ones that spoke and we did the videos together and all that, I didn't really know you. And I think it's funny because I think I had the sense of you that you were this kind of aloof businessman, that James was the vulnerable one and you were the businessman. So I think actually I was a bit intimidated by you in the very, very early days. And then once we did the mental health in the workplace event with the speech, and I met you a couple of times, then I got to know you a bit better. So actually, I can relax about him a bit more. But I still, in my head, had this image that you were the businessman here. So I still had this feeling of slight intimidation. And then I think even when I got the job and I was coming in here, I was like, oh, I'm going to be working close with George, but I don't know George as well. I know James better. But then once I started working with you, so quickly that intimidation feeling I had just went. I think when I really got to know you, and I think pretty much actually my very first day at Sanctus, we went for drinks. I think we said we'd go for one drink, and then it was 6. And you really opened up to me immediately about some of your story. And so literally after my first day, I was like, oh, everything I thought before was wrong. So that went so quickly. But
what gave you the impression of the businessman bit? What
I
was
think
the bit that you were nervous of? Or?
That's what's so interesting. I think why we're doing this kind of thing now is I think now you show a lot more of yourself online, but I think I didn't see so much of that before. Like I didn't see the things that I hear you say now, and now that you say on these kind of things. So I knew that you were the one that was kind of organising the interview process, for example, and yeah, kind of saying to me that you have to open up a formal interview process. Like you can't just give me the role. Like you need to meet other people. So I'm like, oh, he's doing it properly. Like he's doing it formally. So I think in my head I had the sense that James might have just been like, oh, let's just get them all in here. Whereas you were like, no, we're doing it properly.
So
we're a business.
Sounds like because you'd been following James, you could get a sense of who he was. Whereas because there was nothing about me online, you didn't know who I was basically.
No.
Yeah,
so
that's almost scared. Like
So I think I just in my head I was like, you're kind of like the CEO, and then I have my own misconceptions around what a CEO is like or what a business is like from my own bad experiences, which I'm sure we'll come on to. So I think immediately I'm like, well, if someone is in a CEO position, then they're a certain kind of person, or I don't know if I can fully trust them, or I need to be intimidated by them just by them having that badge. And like I said, we'll come on to this, but that has now changed. But back then I was like, I'd had a bad experience with my CEOs before, so I was like, I haven't got a good kind of track record to go off here with you.
So interested because when we first met, I could sense that you were nervous, and I really wanted to get behind that. Like I really wanted to find a way to like disarm. Yeah, I didn't know why I was giving off this energy of making you feel like that. So I would honestly go back and be like, I need to somehow like stop him from feeling like that around me. Like I really want you to relax, because I knew behind that I wanted to get to know you. Do you get what I mean? So because I almost felt like you were trying to impress me or not make a bad move, and I was like, I want to watch you make a bad move. I want you to just drop the front. And in hindsight, I think I probably had a bit of a front as well, because I'd never, haven't hired people. Haven't hired many people, so it's new for me as well. But I really wanted to like find a way to like get past the barrier. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think also when we met, I know we were just meeting, but I knew in my head it was like an interview in a way. So I think that made me so nervous, and I was then probably putting up more of a front. But again, this comes back to the ideas I had of how you had to be in an interview. You had to be a certain way. You couldn't be honest. You had to put up this front. So I was being so nervous to show that. And knowing you so well now, I wish I could do the interview again, because I'd just be so honest. Like, I didn't think I could be fully honest in the interview, because then you wouldn't hire me. Whereas actually now when we interview, the first thing we look for really is honesty. So I think that's why I was nervous, because I was like, I can't trip up or he'll never hire me.
Too much at stake.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So interesting.
Really
We're both
cool.
feeling that in a different way.
Yeah.
Can you remember your first impression of me?
Yeah, it wasn't that. That's really interesting. I didn't feel like that about you at all. I remember I'd seen more of James, but I think prior to me coming in, like I had like looked through the website and stuff, so I knew that the story was that you were best mates who had worked together previously. And I think I'd started watching things at the time when maybe you'd been here for like a month or something. So I think there was quite a few videos involving you. So yeah, I remember my kind of like impression of you two. I was like, oh, they're these like kind of like mental health like influencer YouTuber types. Like I'd never really met anybody who did like videos of you like on the streets and stuff like that. So I remember thinking like, oh, I was quite like impressed, I guess. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. That's like a bit different. And then when I came in to meet you, I remember thinking James was like really sort of open, engaging, like easy to talk to, and you weren't unfriendly, but I remember thinking that you were more serious. Like I was sitting there talking and obviously like, answering your questions, and I knew that James was really listening, but you were sussing me out, I remember thinking. And I remember like looking over and James be like going like, yeah, and it's also this, and then I kind of like look back to you and you just be sitting there like a slow nod sort of thing as well. And I didn't think you were like being cold or anything, but I could just tell that you were like kind of sizing me up kind of thing, to be like, is she legit? Is she real? Because I remember in my first 8 a.m. with you both, I was asking like a lot of questions about like the business as well. And I was like, do you have investment? Like, what's the plans like for growth and stuff like that? Like, and all those sorts of things. And I remember, talking, I think I kind of was connecting with you more on like that front. So I remember thinking that you were quite serious. And then it was when then obviously because you carried on the hiring process of getting me on board. I remember, every time I spoke to you, I was just like, oh, this guy's like so warm and so friendly, and I like knew you wanted me to do well. Like I never really felt like I had to kind of like put on a show or like impress you or be, I don't know, fake or false, or try and put forward like the version that like of a kind of candidate like I thought you wanted. I just remember feeling like really at ease all the time actually with you. But I do remember thinking like, yeah, you're taking this like seriously. And I was like, yeah, good, because I'm great. Like,
Did
so.
you like that?
Yeah, I was impressed as well. And again, like, I think that's probably why, because it's funny, you know, you say at the stage I joined, it was literally just you and James, and there wasn't much here. So like, you know, it was quite like a risky move, like on my part as well. And I remember one of my friends said to me like months later, like, oh yeah, I thought you were absolutely nuts when you took that job.
I remember you telling me that.
Yeah, and I was like, what? And she hadn't said anything. And I remember just being so like, I didn't think it was like a risky move. And I think that was why. I think if you and James had both been like, yeah, like, you know, mental health, let's make loads of YouTube videos, like whatever, and it was all just like airy fairy, I think I would have felt like it was a real risk, like coming here, because I'm like, these guys don't know what they're doing. But that wasn't it at all. It was the complete opposite. I could tell that like you were really like commercially minded, in the sense of you're not trying to turn this into a money spinning operation, but that actually like you knew what you were doing to a certain extent of like building a business, and you knew what the missing parts were that you needed, and you were trying to work out like, is Vic the next cog in the machine that we need? And yeah, I think the fact that I could tell, especially you, like took the business side of it and how we were going to really grow it and make it work seriously, that I didn't feel like it was a risk at all. I was like, no, I'm in safe hands, because we've got this real pure mission that I can tell like is genuine, and these like boys like live and breathe it. And then also we've got like, you know, you kind of at the helm of running the operational side of it, and it felt in safe hands.
If I asked my brother and sister, they would not describe me as serious. They'd describe me as a joker, you know, as like whatever, completely opposite. And I think I'm trying to reflect on it. I think sometimes my tension is that like I am, as you get to know me, I'm fucking, you know, loud and whatever. But I think I sometimes feel the tension of like, I'm doing it for the first time. I want people to be impressed. So I also put up a front. I also put up I'm a serious businessman front, so that you take me seriously. Because if I give my Joker version that my brother and sister know, like you just said, Vic, maybe you wouldn't want to work it, because you'd be like, this guy's just up for going, you know, for drinks and partying and just having a bit of a laugh. So I honestly feel that even today, I feel that tension. I think back then I was even more kind of protecting myself of like, I don't want to give away the real me, because I'm afraid that people might not want to work here or work for us, or do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I was really surprised when I started working here, because then so quickly I saw this like,
I think once you're in, I'm like, you're in now.
And you're just like this ball of energy, and you're so easy going. And even when there's really serious stuff going on, you're quite often like the level head, or like the calm like sounding board, but not in a way like you're not taking it seriously, but it's just like you seem like unfazed. Like it takes a lot to like frazzle you as well. So like I think that's maybe that's like what you noticed as well. Like I certainly found that when I got here, I was like, oh god, like really take things like in your stride, and like
I feel like I can just relax. I think once I trust you and you're in, and maybe I do suss people out a little bit, because I don't want to give the real me to everyone. I think once you're in, I give it you.
Probably the point that I respected you the most, that's been the biggest bit I remember, is when I saw you get emotional in a team reflections. So we do like a reflections group where we all get together as a team and talk about what's going on for us, like whatever that might be, which is very different to how a lot of maybe workplaces run. And I think it was such a new concept for me. Like I've never heard of that being done in any business before. Sitting in a room with like your boss, and your boss might talk about whatever, or you might talk about whatever. But I remember you got emotional, you got upset in that. And I think I was only like a month into my new role. So yeah, it's still like the early phases where you're sussing out this new role. Like, is it right for everyone? You're still technically in probation or whatever. And I basically saw my boss like cry. And that for me was when you earned like my total respect, because that's when I knew you were going to show me the real you here, always and like forever, basically. And when I tell my mates about that story, I told them after, they were like concerned for me. They were like, "You not worried about your job here? Like, what if your boss is a bit unstable?" Or and I was like, honestly, I need to see that in people for me to fully trust them. So the second you showed me that emotion, I was like, I'm in. I've made the right decision.
Yeah, it's weird because that reflection, I knew I was emotional, and I
remember that.
I nearly didn't go in. I felt so emotional because something was going, like with my gran it was, and I just thought if I go in there and like break down in front of everyone, I was like, I don't know if I'll be able to stop myself from like breaking down and crying, and I don't want to be that open, basically exposed. Just felt really exposed because I knew what was going to happen. And to be honest, even in there, I was trying to hold it together. I didn't really give it the full. So it's really interesting to hear you say that, because I was so close to not going in there, and it'd be weird. Like our relationship might be a lot different. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, and I think everyone needs to see different things in a manager. Like my mates, clearly, if they see that, they're worried. Like they're looking for another job or whatever. But I think I need to see that in people. Like I'm not impressed by like the title. If you're a CEO, like cool. I'm not impressed by your title or like how long you've been somewhere or whatever. I need to just see the real person. That's what I trust and that's what I respect. Whereas I know a lot of my mates, like not criticising, they're just different, but they respect the experience and they respect the titles. And if people have the connections and they do certain public speaking gigs and they've got the suit or whatever, they respect that kind of external outward appearance that people show. It just doesn't do it for me. Like it doesn't impress me. Like I need to see what's in there to really trust someone and respect someone.
Yeah, I remember that. That was a really special reflections actually. Yeah, I think a lot of people share, but I can really clearly remember what you talked about as well. And I think it just really touched me that you were willing to kind of like bring that to like the wider team that was there as well, and to actually feel like you could share it. And I think I'm thinking back as well to kind of when I've like really like trusted you or felt like I really connected with you, and I think it's been a little different for me because I worked kind of like alongside you for a while. So as much as like you supported me, you've obviously you're the founder, so like there is that level of like authority, I guess, as well. Like I've often felt like I've worked more like alongside you, so I feel like along the like it's been more sort of like short like a little small steps for over a long time that I've really connected with you. Like we've sort of shared things quite ad hoc or working really closely with you. Like I've always felt like I kind of knew the real you, but then seeing you do things like that felt really special, and actually was just like, wow, like that's a way to really like show up for like the rest of your team. And I think I've always just really appreciated how much you've like trusted me. Like we've talked about this before, but it's always been an interesting kind of dance or balance, whatever you want to call it, because obviously Sanctus really belongs to you and James. It's your baby, like you guys founded it. But for me to do my job well as like head of operations, I need a lot of freedom and autonomy and a lot of responsibility, really. And
I need to let you in.
Yes, you need to open that door and let me in. And it's been a real interesting balance because I've just kind of realised over time I need to just keep on asking. I need to keep on asking for what I need because I do my job. I know it best. I need to be very explicit in saying, I need to look after this thing now, or you need to tell me about this. I need like this information. But for you to actually do it, it requires trust. And I've always been so impressed about how you and James, but like particularly you, have always gone, okay, cool, let's do it. And there's never been any ego or any like clinging to stuff or, this is my thing, like I'm not going to give it away, the end result has always just been like, I trust you, like go for it as well. And I think the reason how we've got to that point is through things like sharing what's really going on for one another, understanding the full picture of like where we're at, not just work-wise, but like in our lives in general. And I think that's meant that we've actually really been able to rely on one another, which I think has been amazing for the health of Sanctus and for like our like kind of relationship working together and being like friends as well.
True. And I think I almost can't let go until I get to know you as well, because I think once I really truly knew like you do what's right for the company almost. Once I knew that, and your best interest was like you will do whatever is right for the company. Once I felt that, I don't know if there's a moment where I felt that. I'm trying to think, but I think that's why I was slow almost to like let go of bits.
You have to earn it, right?
Yeah, because I wanted to know, because I know like people have to care about themselves, and I want people to care about themselves. But I think to really let Sanctus and the parts of Sanctus go from me, I have to know that the person I'm giving it to cares about Sanctus as much as I do. That's what it is. And I think once I see that in people, I give loads. I give it all almost, because in my head it's better shared with people that I trust. But it just takes time. I think that just had taken me, especially with you, because you're the first person I had to do it with almost.
Yeah.
And it feels fast because it hasn't been too long. But at the same time, I used to go and be like, I need, have I got trust issues with people, like, or am I just being too cautious, or should I give things away too quickly? I don't know. I'm sure like it could have been quicker and sometimes slower, but
it would have been different. But I think we've gone at the pace that's felt right as well. And again, like, I think I'd have been suspicious if you would have given everything to me straight away. I'd be like, just going out. Like, I would probably feel quite pressured. Like, you just sort it out now. I don't want to do it anymore. Like, if it's responsibilities or levels of information within like what's going on within the business, I might be a bit like, oh, okay, that feels a bit quick. But I think actually because we've kind of earned it from one another and it's built up more organically over time, and it's not just been like, right, you're this job role now, you look after like all this stuff. It's it feels more stable, I guess, as well. Because otherwise it'd be super easy, right, to go the other way and just be like, cool, you look after everything.
Yeah.
And to not know that I'm the right person, and to not,
just throw it away almost.
Take our time with it as well. Yeah. And also it's let me grow, because it's always got to the point where I'm like, okay, this job's got bigger now, I need to take on more. Or, like, I need to have insight into, I don't know, be it like finances of the business or like whatever it is, and to keep asking for that stuff has actually really improved my confidence.
Cool. That's nice.
To actually feel like I can be assertive enough and ask for what I need. I actually think that's like invaluable, and that's definitely something that at first I used to be a bit nervous sometimes asking for that stuff, or I always had this thing of like, oh, I never want to be too like pushy or like bossy, which I actually think is quite like a gendered thing. I think for a lot of like women in the workplace, there's that thing of like, if you ask for stuff, you're seen as like, demanding, or like, oh, she's a bit fiery, isn't she? If you like stand up for yourself, or if you're very opinionated about matters going on. So and like, I remember I've talked about this before, but I remember I got called like, I was the gobby one in one workplace where I worked, because I always, spoke my mind, that I had an opinion. And to actually kind of like get rid of those like, oh, does that mean I'm doing something wrong, kind of that kind of thinking in the back of my head, and to actually trust that like, no, I'm doing this because I'm doing what is best for the business, and here's what I need to know. So I need to like ask for that and trust that George is going to let me do it. So
makes so much sense.
It paid off in the long run.
It's
made me grow more doing it that way.
So good. And I think I'm always thinking like, I would honestly class you as both friends. Like, if I play out my life, and let's say, I don't know how long we'll work together for. Could be forever. 3 years, could be forever. I don't know, but let's say we'd stop working together next year. I know I'd stay in touch with both of you. I know we'd be mates. But I always hear a lot of people say you should never be mates or friends, especially with employees. Like I've got friends who run companies, and they keep that sort of distance from people. And I think it's a really interesting one, because I don't know, like if, let's say I have to have a difficult conversation with you, Biz, at some point, and be like, man, I'm not sure this is the right place for you, let's say. It will make that conversation, well, this is the perception. It will make that conversation harder, because we've got like an emotional kind of relationship as well. And I think that's why it's scary. It's because I'm giving a lot of myself to you. So if things stop working, it is like a relationship. Like, then what happens? Like that will be harder than if we keep our distance, and then if it doesn't work, I'm kind of removed from feeling anything. I think you kind of take the emotion out of the equation. I think. I was just going to ask, do you worry about that as well?
Like to a degree, but I think it's that kind of thing where you like people, to avoid maybe a little bit of hurt or a small bit of pain, they avoid the situation altogether. And then the enormous upside that you get from it, you miss out on, just to avoid that little bit of pain or whatever. So I think if we do ever have to have difficult conversations, it will be made harder because of that. But then the upside that we get daily and weekly and monthly, I think is so much greater. Like, I know I would do more for you here in a work capacity than I would for other bosses, because we have that relationship. I think it does mean that the lines are blurred a little bit more, and maybe sometimes you have to really think, do I need to be George the employee here or George the mate here? And if I say certain things, I'm like, is that too jokey right now? Like, is he going to take that as a mate, or is he going to take it as a boss or whatever? So I think maybe sometimes the lines can be a little bit blurred, but again, I think come back to this enormous upside you have. I just think that is invaluable, and that I think that people miss out on that by not being close with their bosses.
Yeah, because I think, like, I've literally had conversations with other founders that have gone through it and been really close, and then it's got hard. Like, I think I've heard one example where they basically say to me, like, you have to always really try hard to keep the company and the whole as no one's almost bigger than the whole, because let's say, like, I don't know, you have a family and your salary here at Sanctus supports that, but actually what's right for the company is you move role or you have to leave or things have to change. He was like, you have to keep that in mind, because if you lose that, then everyone's in danger almost. If you start thinking about individuals, then actually, and you take your eye off the whole, then that's when the whole's in danger almost. And yeah, I think that's the fear. I feel like we're super almost innovative, or I feel like I can only run this one way, which is the way I'm running it. So I'm almost, the way I see it is like, I want to run it this way, and if we come up to like bloody hurdles like that in the future, I'm just like, I trust that we'll cross them, even if it's hard. But I don't feel like I've got a choice. Like, I don't feel like I can be any other kind of leader or manager or run it in any other way, because this is just how I am. Do you know what I mean?
I also think that, you know, it's really beneficial for me, and I'm sure you say the same, for us to be mates, because you get more out of me being my manager by us being mates. Like, you see things in me sometimes before I've seen them in myself. And so you're able to pick out things or say, oh, you know, mate, you could do this better or whatever, and I haven't even realised it. And I think you only get that level of insight by us being mates. And so by us being so comfortable, I can share things with you that maybe I wouldn't share with other bosses. So then that helps inform the way you kind of manage me. So I actually think it has helped me to grow more in a work capacity by us being mates.
So as a result, like, you've worked better in the company.
Yeah. Because I think we, you know, maybe there's parts of like with public speaking, like I've always been really anxious with that, and I've been able to say that to you, you know, how it makes me nervous or whatever. Whereas I think in other workplaces you've probably got to put on a certain front, and I wouldn't be able to say that to a boss. I'd have to, you know, live this lie of how I'm going to smash it with this public speaking, whereas actually it makes me nervous. So I was able to say that to you, and I think then when I was having to start giving talks, you were really good about it, and you were able to give me pointers in the right way, and you know, commend me on the things that went well, and you notice things in the talks because I was able to be so honest with you, and then that has now got me to the point where I feel comfortable with them. But I don't think I would have got there if I wasn't able to be honest with you.
I just care loads about everyone here. Like, I really do. Like, sometimes I feel like I don't maybe show it, but I really care about it. I want everyone to just smash life and do their best. And I know that will help Sanctus and me, but I also want it personally. And I think I'm almost scared of that, because I care about people so much. At the minute it's aligned, and I feel like it's easy. But I feel like when it gets hard, I'm almost scared of that, because all I want is the best for you. So I think when the best for Sanctus isn't the best for you, that's what's just hard, you know. That's for me personally as well. That's the kind of, I feel like that's the dark side that people warn me about, and do you know what I mean?
I just think you have to cross that bridge when you come to it, is all I'm thinking about. And I don't feel, I guess my sort of personal philosophy with it is like being like risk averse in that sense of like, I'm not going to connect with the people I work with, you know. And I've kind of had to grapple with this as well, as like my role's grown within the business, especially joining like what's now been established as kind of like the leadership team within Sanctus, you know. I ask myself those questions, you know, like, oh, should I be like holding back and stuff? But really what I always come back to is, the more you err on the side of risk and like, oh, like, what if I have to have a difficult conversation, so like I can't connect with people, or I can't, you know, be really vulnerable about like what's going on with me, or, you know, kind of be more open. It's just like, you just don't get the best out of me as well, and you miss all of that richness that we've all experienced of what it's actually like to connect with people, because you know, we spend so much time with the people we work with. Like, I see you guys way more than I see most of my other close friends, like, and family and stuff as well. So you know, to kind of spend that whole time holding back and, you know, not really getting to know like the human beings who I'm spending time with. I think I can't work that way. I'm very much like, what you see is what you get. I've kind of only got one version of me really, and that's just how I show up in the world. And secondly, I think we get so much more out of each other, like with regards to the actual like work that we do. I think it just makes it like so much easier, and you just know people better. So, you know if people are nervous about things, and you know how you can like step in and help like encourage them, or if there's certain things that people find difficult, you know, that you can help them a bit more. And it just brings all the stuff that's always underlined to the surface, I think, by being closer with people. And then you can work through it. And then there's not that like added anxiety of, oh, what if I tell them I'm not good at something? And then like, you know, they're mad at me as like my boss or whatever. I just think that actually having that like mates level just makes it easier and just more pleasant like day to day as well. And I feel like there will come a time if there has to be like difficult conversations, but I'd hope that all the connections and the trust that we've built up over time would make that easier to
get us through it,
you know, because we've actually kind of got that like bond already, and it's, you know, you can just speak plainly and truthfully. I think we probably really overcomplicate it. Like I think
that's what I mean.
I think like an alien came to planet Earth and was like, oh, like all these people want to like connect and, you know, like make friends and fall in love and all those other kind of things, apart from when they're at work, apart from between the hours of like 9 to 6 where they're not supposed to talk about anything. And there are some people who, you know, do different things in the company, and then that means that they're not allowed to like connect with any of the other people. Like I think that's really isolating and a really lonely way to think about doing business. And I think with what we're building here, if we did it that way, we wouldn't be living our values. And I think that, you know, we are kind of blazing the trail for a workplace that blends the heart with like mission, startup culture, and, you know, wanting to spread what we do like far and wide. And I think that this is the challenge of building something like that. Like we're going to have to learn it the hard way. I don't see any other way.
I agree.
And I feel like, yeah, maybe it will be different to like your mates who are running startups, but this is how we're going to try it. And God, we're going to learn a lot. And I hope that whatever we learn will make more businesses try it this way. Because even just the 2 years of doing this, I'm like, oh, this is something special. This is a way better thing to try. And yeah, maybe those conversations will be more difficult, but I'm like, worth it.
It just seems like common sense to me. Like I can't.
That's what I mean.
Now I'm here. Like we're doing it different, but I'm like, this should just be the way. Like it seems completely nonsensical to me that people go into workplaces with this huge front. So between certain hours, you have to show certain parts of yourself and say certain things and be a certain way. Like it's fucking exhausting doing that.
Yeah, until you get down the pub on a Friday and then everyone gets drunk and all that stuff comes out and then everyone feels anxious all weekend. And then people go back to work on Monday with this like shame hangover. But I was just going to say as well, I think the only time that I've actually found it difficult is when it comes to giving like, I guess like feedback or saying something's not working.
Yes.
If I know like you've been going through like a difficult time or something, or if I know you've been really stressed, or if I know that you've been finding like...
I mean, you've had that at times when...
we had it very recently, actually. You talked about it in one of your other podcasts, didn't you? Yeah, where like we had this meeting with our mentor, and, you know, I kind of knew that you'd had like a bit of an up and down kind of week, and then you'd been away at the do lectures and stuff, but we had to have like a really frank conversation, and I was so nervous to say what I had to say, even though I knew it was for the good of Sanctus, to say like, you know, you need to kind of come back in and you need to get stuck in on the day-to-day a bit more. But I was really nervous to say it because I was like, I know what you've got going on, and I know you're stressed, and I know you're doing your best at the moment, and I know it's not through, you know, you can't be asked, or you're not trying, or you don't care. I know it's none of that stuff, but I also know that you're stressed out, but I need to say this thing. And it was actually, I just had to trust that like our relationship was good enough that I could say the difficult thing because it was for the good of Sanctus. And actually, like, I was so like impressed with the way like you and James like took that as well. You just took it so well, and you knew that I was saying this thing, you know, not to...
The intent.
The intent
like, I
was
know,
so right.
I know with everyone, and I hope people know it with me, like, my intent is always comes from a place of like, I just care about you and the company, and I just care about doing the right thing. And I knew you were giving me that feedback, and it wasn't from a place of like ego or anything like negative. It was just like genuinely, this is what I'm seeing. This is how it is, and I knew that, so it makes it a lot easier. And I hope like when we have difficult conversations, and we already have over the last couple of years, that intent, like in that situation, it shows up, and because we've got that trust, I know it comes from the right place. And it was fine after. Yeah, exactly. It was like we didn't. Exactly. It was weird. Like there was no kind of fallout. I remember after we'd had it, because it was quite like it was a very intense conversation. There was like some difficult things that needed to be said. I remember afterwards we all kind of sat there and we were like, oh, like what now? Like it was just unusual to have said, you know, to have been that plain and that honest and direct, and then to be like, oh, but like no one's kind of bad at one another. Like it's just been said, and we're just going to carry on as normal. And I think that's a testament to what happens when you do have that close relationship, because you're
you've just got that foundation of trust and respect with one another that I know that I can tell you what you need to know, and that's not going to be shaken.
So having said all that, I want to know, basically, am I a good boss? That's what people have tuned in for. They want to know. That's the title. But I think we should start with, like, what could I do better? Or what's difficult? What do you find difficult about working with me? Yeah. And be honest, like, this is the proof of everything we've just said.
Yeah.
Of building a company where there's lots of trust and you can be honest and you know the real me. So I know the intent's pure. So give it me.
My stomach's just turned a little bit.
My body language just suddenly got very tight. Okay, yeah, I'll go. So the question is...
What do you find difficult about working with me? Yeah.
Yeah, I think a pattern I've noticed with the way we work with one another, particularly because my job, often responsibilities that used to belong to you get passed down to me as your role then grows. The pattern I've noticed as a result is that sometimes responsibilities will come to me, say, for example, like finance or people, and then you kind of dip back in a little bit. And it's kind of this dance where I'm sitting there like, hey, I thought I was going to look after this thing, and now you're doing this. Like, I think I should be doing that. And it's that constant, like, push-pull sort of thing. And it's tough, though, because I know exactly where it comes from, especially as my role's changed. I know that as you give pieces of your job away, there's this weird transition phase where you're like, oh, what do I do now? What's my job? And it's very natural and easy to go back to doing the thing you did before. So I know when that happens, it's just because you're finding your feet, but it's sometimes hard to, again, use all that energy to go, like, hey, I need to be doing that. That shouldn't be sitting with you. Or I thought I was going to look after that thing, so maybe you should let me finish off that project. Or, yeah, sometimes I will be tactful and be like, yeah, great idea. I'll take it from here kind of thing. But, yeah, sometimes it's tough because it's a bit like, it could be frustrating sometimes.
You've given it to me, now let me do it.
Yeah, now just let me do it. Let me crack on with it. And then, yeah, the only other thing that springs to mind was it was more so in the early days. It's not been so much of a case, definitely not recently. But I used to wish you were a bit more direct with me. Like sometimes you would give me feedback or you'd perhaps say something more as a passing comment. And I'd be like, oh, what do you mean? And I could sense that sometimes perhaps you wanted to say more than you did. And I think now I'm more comfortable where I'll be like, are you saying this? Or like, I'll actually just kind of push you to be like, what do you really mean?
Yeah.
Whereas I think before I would kind of leave it and then feel like something had been a bit vague or perhaps not spoken as like.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm too nice sometimes, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, and even that though, you know, what underscores all of this is just that I know where you're coming from, so I know if you're stressed, I know if you're finding a particular aspect of your job difficult at the moment. So I do understand. It's never I'm like, you know, blaming you for doing any of that, but obviously, you
want to hear the truth, and
I just want to hear the truth, and it's just
that's
and even
feedback.
with the other thing as well, it's just natural to have a reaction of frustration to that. Like it's just part of it, isn't it? But the good thing is that I trust you so much that I can just say, let me do that, or what do you mean by that, and I can actually just kind of name what's happening, and then we work.
You get
through
it out of me,
but I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't trust you as much as I do. So. Because I'd be scared you're going to be like pissed off with me and not speak to me for a week after or something. But that's not the case.
That's good feedback.
That's good.
Go on then,
like,
Biz.
shake it off.
You ready for more?
Yeah.
I don't think I've got a lot, but I think the only thing is that obviously like this is new to you, this way of leading and leading this kind of team and leading this kind of company in this way and not taking investment or whatever. So I think you're still learning and growing into your role as a leader. So I think sometimes you might change things, or things might change in you, or certain ways you want to lead, or projects or parts of the company, and it can maybe change quite quickly, and then that kind of trickles down to the team. Or I think we've got like a team of like advisors in place who help us in various aspects of the business, and they're like geniuses. So obviously one meeting with them, they'll bestow like a bunch of wisdom on you, and then I think you and James might come out of that with your heads like blowing off.
New ideas.
So then sometimes there's like messages that evening about what's changing, or you come in and we're taking a new direction, or this line we've been using for 6 months is gone and we're using a different line. I think sometimes there can be quite rapid turns quite quickly. But then
That changed my mind a lot. Like I can change my mind.
Not that makes it sound like you're fickle. I don't think in that way. I don't think you change your mind. I think you've got a really good direction, and we're always heading in that direction. But there might just be, we kind of deviate off the course a little bit to come back on or whatever. Yeah. It's not like you do a 180. Yeah. But then I think that I don't criticize you for it, because I think like it's just part of being in a startup, and I think it's part of being a young leader, and I'm young in my role, so things I'll change. But I think maybe at first I can feel I think change is hard for anyone at first. So at first I'm like, oh god, that feels a bit weird.
Does it make you feel anxious when that stuff happens? Or
I think initially it can do, or I'm at least like, well, there's this new thing I need to get my head around now. But I'm okay with change, so I don't spend weeks thinking about it. Like quite quickly, I'll know that we're doing it for a good reason, and within a day I'm fine. But I think initially, if you've come in and you want to change things, I'm like, oh shit, I thought we were doing this other thing, and now we're doing this new thing. But then I know that it's just part of you and the team growing. So I
don't feel like that's that brutal. Like no, it is quite brutal. Change my mind. I agree.
Yeah. I'm always like,
is there anything? There's got to be something else.
I don't think so.
Maybe we'll bring you back on, and you can actually.
You must need to ask me that question before, so I can go away and do my homework.
I did ask you before.
You knew we were going to talk about.
You knew this.
No,
but
I don't like. The thing is, nothing. Like nothing jumps out, and I don't want to go and like search for something to.
What, the fact he wears Sanctus every day?
Yeah. Like I honestly think that's the only thing that has maybe stood out for me over the last few weeks, a few months, or whatever. I don't feel like
fair. So what would you rate me out of 10? This is the last question.
Honestly,
how am I doing? You can't say a 10, mate.
No, but I was not going to say 10. No one's ever a 10. I'd literally give you a 9. Honestly, mate, I don't think I realised what I needed in a manager until I'd met you, basically. I haven't really had any difficult times really here over the last 14 months or whatever it's been. Yeah, that's honest.
I'm doing well.
Yeah.
Okay. Vic, how would you rate me?
I'm gonna rate you.
Doesn't have to be a number, just.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, like, obviously, human being, like, you both 10 out of 10s.
Yeah.
As a manager, I think just because we're all still learning and stuff as well, I'd say, like, 7.
Yeah.
Like, and that the 3 pointers are just because there's so much we haven't had to do yet, and there's so much you haven't had to know about or try or grow into. But yeah, just I talk to friends especially about like the people they work closely with, or even the founders at like their businesses, and it always makes me realize just how lucky I am as well, and how it just makes me so grateful for the relationship that we have of working together, because it is so rare to work with somebody who's so honest, who cares so much about not just like my professional development, but like my personal side of things, and someone who can just let me say the kind of hard truth sometimes and not hold it against me. I said this to you, I think the other day as well, but I was like, I'm always just so impressed by how little ego you have, and that just makes you so easy to like work with and work for. And I just think how dedicated you are to the mission, and how much you motivate not just me but the wider team. It just makes it an absolute breeze, and I just like love working with you. So I've got nothing but good things to say on that front.
I reckon we end it there. That was a good end.
Yeah,
I don't want to go back and down into the dark of like one back. Yeah.
And also you bought me a coffee this morning, so I really like you today.
That's how I get people into talking business. I buy coffee.
101. That's how it gets us in for these 8 a.m. as one of these bad boys.
No, I love working with you both as well. Like I say, however long we work together, I know we'll be friends for life sort of thing.
Oh yeah, you ain't getting rid of me now.
Yeah, exactly. And I've loved doing this. I think doing this and being this honest is just ridiculous. Like I've never had this experience before as well. So thank you for like coming on here this morning and like actually telling me how it is and being real.
You're welcome. Thanks for asking.
It's not easy.
Thanks for having us.
I've loved doing it. Boom. I think that's it. See you next week.